Hey, everybody. Cassidy, founder and creator of the Caregivers Hub, coming to you today. We are live with our monthly recorded Caregivers Hub Hangouts. And if you don't know what that is, so every single month with our support group, the Caregivers Hub support group, I try to bring out somebody who has had experience, who has a story, who has some knowledge, who can help you maybe gain a different perspective, maybe gain some more knowledge, and maybe create a little bit of awareness about different caregiving topics that you are not familiar with. And if you don't know what the Caregivers Hub support group is, we are a community for caregivers. Anybody who's providing mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual care to another human being is allowed in our group. We have professional caregivers, we have family caregivers, and now, since I've been connecting with Victoria, our speaker today, I'm getting a lot of young caregivers. And you know what's so funny? It's not funny, but for those of you who don't know who I am, of course, my name is Cassidy, but I'm a certified nurse-to-date of 15 years now. And I know, 15 years. It's been a long time. But I've only worked in geriatric care. I'm currently working in hospice. So our hospice takes patients no younger than the age of 18. So we don't do children. And so that kind of leads me to be taking care of different people at different ages, given the diagnoses. And so, but my brain is like wired for geriatrics, and most of my caseloads are geriatrics. So when I connected with Victoria, and I'm going to kind of tell you how I found Victoria. So I got out there in a bunch of different caregiving support groups, and I'm a member of many of them. Some of them have kicked me out. Some of them put up with me. It just kind of depends. But I saw Victoria post after the loss of her husband. She's going to get into her story, which is a powerful one. She's on an awesome mission, which is why I wanted to bring her out and give her some love and give her this platform to create some awareness. Absolutely, because, it's hard enough what we do as caregivers, whether you're caring for somebody who's 35 or you're caring for somebody who's 85. The load is almost the same, but there are many different things that are different. So we're going to go over that as well. But I want to tell you how I found Victoria. One morning, I saw this post, and she respectfully, openly was expressing how in this support group, which was not our support group, my support group, she really didn't feel supported in her journey as a caregiver and going through her journey at end of life with her husband, and how she kind of was upset about that. And I felt like, at least for me and my support group, if you come to the Caregivers Hub, we do our best to make sure that those things don't happen, because I don't ever think that caregivers should be chastised, berated, or belittled by other caregivers for their caregiving preferences. We are all on a journey. All of us have different journeys. And so I just reached out to Victoria and I said, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I really would love to have you in the hub, because this isn't going to happen to you there. And ever since then, we've been connecting and talking about her journey and what she's been doing and what life has been like since her husband has passed, and her caregiving journey. I don't like to say that a caregiving journey ends after somebody passes. I kind of like to say that it's just a continuation of your journey as a caregiver, because I don't think that caregiving, that experience, ever leaves you. It never leaves you. It changes you in ways that change your life. When you come out on the other side of it, now it's grief and loss and dealing with that and dealing with what caregiving was like. It's a traumatic experience for some people, and it goes on so long, or it goes so quick that it's almost like you don't know what to do. So I'm going to quit talking now and I'm going to bring out Victoria and I'm going to have her tell you her story, what she's doing, and then we're going to get into her nonprofit and what she wants to do with that. So I'm super excited. Victoria, come on out and share your story and share who you are.
Hello. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm super excited. So my story ended on, my husband passed away on July 8th from ALS. He had just turned 45 years old, and I became his full-time caregiver July 1st of 2015. So 2 years and about a week. We had no help, no aides. We were on hospice for about the last year. He refused aides, outside caregivers, doctors, everybody. We had our hospice nurse came. We tried to push it to every 10 days, about once a week. At the end, we ended up on crisis care for about the last 60 hours. But other than that, we had no medical help, no trained help. How about that?
Okay.
So there was definitely a steep learning curve. There's so much to learn in such a short amount of time, and so many things that you don't really realize happen.
Right. Right.
So my husband had ALS for less than 5 years. And at the very beginning, he progressed very slowly. He was a fire captain out of Reno, Nevada. Very headstrong, very stubborn, this is the way we're going to do it. So we tried to give him like the best life possible until the very end. And up until about 2 months before, we were still carrying him onto the boat to go fishing. No one else ever saw him naked other than his brother and myself. His brother would carry him we were in a not handicap friendly home. His brother would carry him into the shower. I'd get him undressed, shower him, and then he'd carry him back to the couch. I guess we did the best we could.
Well, that's all you can do.
It's all we could do. I think that's when you're young, you're more likely to not have help because he didn't want it. He didn't want anybody in there. And I was young enough and strong enough to lift him I picked him up 3 days before he passed. So, and I think that's something different when you're older. You don't have the strength to take care of someone on the level that some of the younger people do. That's probably one of the hardest things because you're in it 24 hours a day. I didn't get a break. I could have, people always said, well, if you just ask me. But on the flip side, my husband was always like, I don't know. Don't go there. I was getting our groceries delivered. I was getting DoorDash for food. I knew I couldn't leave from about December. We were married December 7th. So from about that time, I never left my husband for more than an hour at a time. So December 7th, 2015 until July 8th, I was never gone for more than an hour, hour and a half from the house.
Oh, honey girl.
So it was, if my parents came to visit, I could run to dinner real quick, but grocery store and back, maybe Costco. But it was definitely a full-time thing. So then we had hospice come in. It got to the point where he just declined very rapidly in the last week. And he passed.
Yeah.
So,
well, my deepest condolences on the loss of your husband and that's an incredible journey, Victoria.
It happened quickly. We had a lot of fun. We were always wakeboarding, always water skiing. Like we had a plane, we flew. He worked 2 days off for 4. So our whole lives were about just having fun. Mm-hmm. And once he got sick, that changed everything. So it didn't just change, he didn't go to work anymore, or I didn't go to work anymore. We were used to having so much fun, and we didn't even have cable. And as soon as he got sick, we had cable, and we had never been to the movies together. We're watching movies, and our lives completely flipped from what they were. So that was a big adjustment to make as well. So
yeah. Absolutely. And I can only imagine, I think, and I don't think that anybody who ever gets a terminal illness, whether it's ALS or dementia or, cancer, I think that those things always change your world to a certain degree. But I feel like I want to know more about the challenges that young caregivers face, because what I've noticed once I started promoting Young Spouse Caregivers, I'm getting a lot of young caregivers coming out of the woodwork, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, my world has opened up, and I'm like, okay, there's a need here. I see. And how do we help them? What are the challenges? How do we help young caregivers?
There are so many different things that you don't really realize happen if you're a young caregiver. So I'm 38. My parents are 59 and 60. So when you're dealing with a young couple, and I know of them, young spouses that are in this situation and starting at like 21. So
Right.
21 up to my age, there's a different dynamic because now you're dealing with each other's parents. You're dealing with siblings. And when you're dealing with people in their 60s, maybe even 50s, 60s, 70s, there's no dynamic of these older parents. So like my parents, their main interest, they loved my husband. He'd been around for 12 years. Like he was part of our family. But when it comes down to it, I am their interest. Their
Mm-hmm.
main concern is that their daughter is okay. His family, their main concern was that he was okay. And then you add, he was the youngest of five. I have a sister. So then you get all the siblings involved. And then you have like all our friends involved. So there's just, you have a bigger support team, but you also have more critics, let's say. You have more people jumping in and telling you what you should do, why you shouldn't do it. And it seems as if lines are drawn very quickly. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost in the beginning it seemed okay, but as he got sicker, it was you're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. And hospice had to come in a couple times and say, our hospice nurse said to me, probably like 3 or 4 months before he passed, she is doing such an amazing job. I would hire her the day Dwayne passed if I could. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so when you have a lot like in-laws and different things telling you what you're doing is wrong because they're not there full time, that is a completely added stress on, you're trying to make everybody happy. You can't make everybody
Yeah.
happy. My
Well,
family wasn't happy. His family wasn't happy. There was always like this other dynamic that a lot of older people don't have because the parents are no longer living.
right. Well, and I think that at least what I've noticed with family caregivers, um, people in their 60s caring for their parents or maybe their aunt or their uncle, they're dealing with their siblings. But I feel like with younger people and terminal diagnoses, it's almost like and I don't want this to sound insensitive, but it's
Yeah.
it's almost like we're more concerned right now because this life is ending early.
Correct.
Whereas we're in our 80s and our 90s and maybe siblings don't show up and help at
Yeah.
all. And then when they do show up, they're really critical, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand how it kind of seems at least that's what I see.
No, that is a big dynamic of it too, because his mom said to me, I wish it was me instead. There are so many times the parent, I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose a child, but they're watching their child die. And that is a very unnatural thing. And parents don't want to watch that. My parents didn't want to watch that happen. My parents didn't want me to go through that with my husband because it's not natural. It's not normal. That's not what you think when you think about the rest of your life. You don't think that that's going to happen. Like a parent should not outlive their child. So there is that dynamic. Like, why can't it just be me? Why can't it just be me? And they're trying to protect, but at a certain state, you can't. Like it's terminal. So then you also a lot in the beginning have some forms of denial. Like maybe it's not that. So we dealt with a lot of denial in the beginning. Which might have delayed treatment a little bit. I don't know. It's ALS, it's terminal. It's 5 years or less, pretty much. Let's just say that. So, I don't know, but there is a huge other dynamic when you do have these parents coming in watching their child die.
Yeah.
And when you're older, you don't deal with that as much, and then dealing with a younger person too. Like my husband was like a typical fireman. He didn't want help. He was used to helping people. So he's not going to have someone else come in and take care of him. He doesn't want like his mom helping him. Like he doesn't want his mom helping feed him. He doesn't want no. He became very. He was the person that you would always see running around naked at a party. And as soon as he got like, and everybody, the pictures that have been sent to me, it's like you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. He never wore clothes. That he became so private at the end. There was none of that going on. Like nobody. I think his sister helped him use a urinal one time, and his brother maybe once or twice. And that, I mean, it was a very set thing.
Yeah.
He would just hold it and not drink anything.
Well, and
until I got that.
I'm going to share a hospice story and get off topic for a minute. But I had a patient who had, who was nearing end of life, and she'd gone through a really rigorous battle with cancer. And, that was kind of the same thing. She was young, she had young children, and she made it very clear to me from the beginning, she's not comfortable with people seeing her naked or people touching her or being in her business. And I myself personally, like up until the point when she absolutely couldn't walk, I only had to give her a bed bath one time before, and I really truly felt like that was for a reason. That was because she knew this is the way that it was going, and her soul was ready, because I only had to do it one time.
Yep.
But I went above and beyond to make sure that that I set her up with all of her clothes in the shower. I walked her to it. I turned around and gave her the privacy, so I never had to see her nude, and that was just the basic. I would hope anybody would do that for somebody at the end of their life. For sure.
I hope so too. And that's like what there's no guidebook to tell you what to do when somebody's at that point. So you really have to go on what the person you're caring for wants.
Exactly.
And I had not envisioned it happening. I had not envisioned, if you would have asked me a year ago how this was all going to go, it would not have been the way it worked out. And I think that's like part of the problem too, is like, we don't have a lot of experience with death being young. I mean, hopefully we don't. And so you're not ready for what actually happens. And no one really warns you about exactly how it's going to go down. I thought I would have bet everything that he would die in his sleep, and I would roll over and be like, okay, call hospice. They'd come get him and it'd be over and done with. And that's not what happened.
Yeah. Well, and I made this, I actually said this to a patient the other day. She's a total spiritual cat, and I love her. She's one of my favorite patients. But she was talking about the journey and how it's going a little faster than she would like. And so I kind of, what I've kind of noticed from a spiritual standpoint is the soul is often ready before the body is even aware it's ready. And everything that we deal with in hospice and at end of life, and this is just my philosophy, this is not hospice philosophy, just putting it out there, but it's my philosophy that everything that we deal with at end of life, pain, anxiety, restlessness, all of those things are our bodies and our brains getting prepared for the soul to make that journey. And it's different for everybody because we're all different.
Yeah. No, it was magical. If a death can be magical,
absolutely,
if anybody wants to hear it, like, feel free to message me. I can get on the phone with you and share it with you. I don't think this is the right venue to share that, but and it doesn't matter what you believe to hear about. It was magical, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
Have the words for it.
Because there are no words. That's what I've said. That's when I say hospice work is the soul work of my life. It really, truly is. And it's an honor to be a part of those things.
And that's one of the things, I actually blogged about it once. Hospice, for anybody out there that thinks they don't want to go on hospice is the most amazing thing on the planet. It saved our lives. It saved my mental state. It saved our marriage. It kept relationships intact as long as they could be intact. Our first hospice nurse from Lake Havasu is one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I never would have gotten through this if I wasn't able to text her. I mean, even when we weren't living there, text her and call her and cry and have her guide me through it. But hospice is not necessarily end of life. It does not mean you're going to die tomorrow. We were on hospice for 13 months. And as long as there's
which is a long time.
It is. It's a lot longer than hospice. You're normally on hospice.
For most people.
His decline was, hospice was the best thing we did. We didn't have to go to the doctors. They came to us. We had care. We had guidance. We had help. We had everything we needed. We had a social worker. You can have a chaplain. You can have anything you need. They knew what our plans were. So we were on crisis care. So we were very lucky. Our nurse had left for an emergency visit somewhere else. And we had another nurse that got there about 5 minutes before he passed. And within 15 minutes, because we donated his brain to science because of CTE research, which is an amazing thing to do also through Boston University. Within 10, 15 minutes, the hospice had been called, the funeral had been come, everybody was on their way, and everything had been handled. So, I mean, hospice is amazing. I don't have enough good things to say about hospice. I never encountered a bad person, a horrible person, a difficult person. I can't say enough good stuff about it. It was amazing.
I love hospice. It's so good. It's so good.
We had nurses for 3 nights at the end, and they dozed off a couple times, and I dozed off. But I mean, my husband was in a hospital bed. I was on the couch. They were on the other couch. And it was just such a comforting feeling to have somebody who, in my eyes, is a professional, help me through this when he would wake up, or you could ask them anything.
Right.
And they come in and they take care of everything you need. It's amazing. So hospice, fantastic.
So tell me, I want to talk about your nonprofit. I want to talk about the Young Spouse Caregiver Alliance. I know this is a new thing, and I know that you're just getting things up and running, but I think it's a massive thing because young caregivers have to have a place to go. They have to have somebody who's been where they have been, who can tell them, you know, I mean, and I've seen you do it time and time again. You're an incredible resource in the hub, and I'm so glad you're there because I'm almost like, okay, where's Victoria? I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this. She's 21. What do I do with this?
Yeah.
You know, that's incredible too. You know, I was thinking about that age at 21, and to be in a spot where you have to care for your loved one at the age of 21, that's just an enormous weight for anybody.
I can't even imagine it. And 5 years ago, I never would have imagined being in my 30s and doing it. But I think a plus to being young is you just do it. You don't have to worry about, in most cases, a job and children and this and this and this. You just say, okay, I'm young, I can handle it, let's do it. I can function on 3 hours of sleep. Let's do this. How do I do it? But when I was going through it, there were some times I went to some support groups. Like I got in my car, drove to a support group, and I walked in, and I remember walking in one day and sitting down, and I looked around, and I stood up, and they said, where are you going? I go, I'm in the wrong place. They're like, are you looking for, I go, yeah. And they go, no, you're in the right place. And I was the youngest person in there, probably by at least 30 years. So I was at the end of the room. Everybody went around and shared. And 50%, there's probably 25, 30 people in the room. 50% of their loved ones, their spouse, was already in a nursing home or a facility of some sort. So they would go and visit, sometimes every day, sometimes once a week. The other 50% were usually in early stages of like dementia, is usually kind of what was going on. So when they all spoke, I was the last one to speak. And I'm not kidding, there was not a dry eye in the room when I was done. And I got more hugs that day than I've ever had. But nobody knew what to say to me. And they all just kind of stared at me. They all gave hugs and, honey, I'm so sorry. But there was nobody I could relate to. And then like the ALS Association would come, and they had said, I don't know where to send you, because nowhere that you're going to go is meet the exact needs you need. All these groups are people in their 60s and 70s. Not that that is not a valuable resource as well, but the needs are different. You know, I'm 38. So I was very lucky. My husband and I had a lot of long talks about what he wanted for my future for me, what I wanted for my future, what my plan was, how he envisioned my plan. And I would like to get married again one day. Like, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to more than likely move on with my life. Not in a negative, I don't mean that in a negative way. And
No.
if you're a young caregiver, you understand what I'm saying at this point. But people that are older, 60s, 70s, won't necessarily get married again. Their option of having children is pretty much out the door. So they either have them or they're not going to have one. You know, they are retired from working. Like, I'm in my prime earning years and now I'm not working. So what happens to my retirement? Do I have one? How, after not working for over 2 years, how do I get back in the workforce? How do I share this story? And there were so many questions that I had that nobody could give me an answer for. Like, when do I take my ring off? Well, I learned that it's been 120 days today that since Dwayne passed. And I actually took my ring off about a month ago. And I took it off because I was getting a lot of questions.
Okay.
A lot of, like, I live in the South now too, and I get a lot of questions like, wait, where's your husband? And me, being who I am, would be like, oh, he's dead. But that would cause an uncomfortable situation amongst these other people. And it was a joke. My husband would have laughed about it. I was laughing, but then you feel bad and you feel like you have to console these other people because your husband died.
Right.
But so what's the right timeline? When's the right timeline? I know other people who have been widowed for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and they're dating. I know widows who were married with a child within a year and a half, 2 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no timeline. And when you go to these support groups I went to, as wonderful as they were, it was a different dynamic. Like, people, you know, their husbands or their wives are in a facility. And so they're kind of used to that. They don't really go out on dates anymore. They're in their 70s. I want to go on a date. Like, I want someone to hug me. I want to get kissed goodnight. But those are things that no one realizes aren't happening anymore. Like, when you're in your 60s and 70s, I don't know what happens when you're in your 60s and 70s, but but it is completely different than when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. And a lot of these things, like, aren't addressed. Like, there's things like, okay, oh my gosh, how, I don't have a child. How do I put a diaper on an adult? You know, there's so many things that no one can really answer these questions for. And I would have been so happy if I would have known, hey, there's these group and they're all in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I can ask any question that I want with no judgment and no anything. And, you know, stuff comes up on the caregiving sites all the time. Yours is amazing. And there's no judgment. Everybody's allowed to say what they want to say. There are some other ones that definitely there's some bullying and there's some criticism. And that's not what this is about. And I wanted to create a place where you could go, ask anything you wanted and get an answer or get opinions and say, hey, I just missed having a hug. Like, is that normal? Like, I want to go on a date. These are the things I want and I'm not getting. How did you get past that? Like,
yeah,
I'm frustrated. My husband's being mean. A lot of terminal patients, from what I experience and what I know, they're young. They're very angry.
exactly.
Any age can be angry, but very, very angry to a point. Like, they're watching their friends do things. You know, my husband so many times said, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. And I said, I don't want to be anywhere else. I love you. This is where I want to be. We are married. I chose to do this. But it is not without its, like, hardships and conflicts and super hard conversations that I wish I just wanted a place for somebody else to go. I never wanted, there were many nights I put him to bed and I sat on the couch and cried my eyes out for an hour or 2 hours. And I don't ever want somebody to feel the way I felt and alone. And there's women and men, mostly women, that have called me or texted me at 11 o'clock at night. And I will happily answer whatever if that's when you have your time to talk, like, let's talk. Let me answer whatever I can answer for you. I'm still not sleeping, so let me do what I can to help you. But I just wanted there to be a place where you can ask anything you want. There's no judgment. And it's a safe place.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm
I mean,
excited
I
to
just
see
wish
what
I
it's going
had
to
it.
turn into.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it goes well.
It
I'm
will. Don't
excited for
ever
it.
give up. I'm going to tell you,
No.
the only thing the reason the Caregivers Hub is as successful as it is and as non-judgmental as it is because I demand it. I don't give anybody
Yeah.
an option. If you don't like it, you can get to stepping. And that comes with a group. But I'm going to tell you, I don't do any marketing, and I got 40
Yeah.
requests yesterday. You know,
Yeah.
so they're coming like crazy, and they need a place, and young caregivers need a place, and the hub is a great place, but we're a mix. And if
Yeah.
you are looking, if you're a young caregiver and you're looking for support, you know, it's true. You guys do need a place. And so Victoria, the kid, so there is there's a group started, Young Spouse Caregiver Alliance support group on Facebook. Make sure you plug into that. I will have the link for that as well. And
And I'm going to start updating in a more frequent manner. I was in San Diego. I moved cross country. It's been a rough couple of months, but it is my new to be more focused.
Transition. You know, we're all in a state of transition at some point. Like we're all moving in our own directions. And
yes.
I think, you know, here's one thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about grief for a little bit. Oh, and another thing I want to talk about. Oh, this is really good. So something that came up in the hub was, and I know you know what I'm talking about, was this. I'm going there. So there was this really controversial post. Now, here's the thing about the hub. We don't shy away from controversial stuff. I personally believe in death with dignity. I live in a state which supports it. And anything, I'm just a huge fan of you as people being able to choose how you want to live your life, how you want to live your life at the end of your life, whatever it is that you want to do with your life, and as long as it's reasonable. Within reason. But this is something that came up that was really controversial, and it was the fact of caregivers having friends with benefits. And this was a conversation because and it was split down the middle. I mean, it kind of went like wildfire, and I was so proud of my hubbers. Oh my goodness, because they handled it extremely well.
Yes.
But you know, you had people saying, absolutely not. I love my partner. I would never do that, even if I needed that. And then you had other people saying, well, my spouse told me that they would like me to have a friend with a benefit because I can't give that to them. And it really opened my eyes again, like, okay, young spouse caregivers, that is something that we need. And I don't know if it's, like I said, generation gaps, like people in their 50s and 60s, you know, they've got a different, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say moral compass because that is not the case. I think that good people, even who, you know, I just think it is something we're dealing with that people don't talk about.
So, and this is something not to interrupt, this is something I've never shared before, but I will share it here because I didn't want to share it on the post because there was one person who was a little.
Oh yeah, well, we got rid of her.
So I just kind of left it when the time is right. So my husband was a year into, so not a year into the diagnosis, but a year into my full-time caring for him. And we had been married about 6 months at this point. We were together for 10 years, married for a year and a half before he passed. And he looked at me and he said, if you want to go date somebody, if you need that, I am okay with that. And I thought, first of all, I just started laughing. I'm like, you're crazy. But then I thought, you know what? That is like, I don't know if you're doing it to like, you know, to just be a jerk and see if I'll do it. Or if you're doing it because you genuinely care about me and you want me to do whatever I need to do. I chose to not do it. That was my choice. I also am in a different situation than some people because with ALS, more than like you know that there's an end to the disease. And I'm kind of talking bluntly right now, and it's not supposed to, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but I knew when he was diagnosed that there was a timeline on that. Like, I knew as a caregiver, like, I'm only going to have a year, 2 years, 3 years to give him the life that he wants to have. So you want to go fishing on the boat and I got to carry you on the boat by myself. We got to like jump to get the wheelchair on the boat. I'm going to do whatever I can do to help you and give you the life. So for me saying, no, that's not what I want to do, I knew that I had a timeline before more than likely this time in my life was going to be over. But I can see how there's people who are early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, stuff like that, and they're going to be caring for this person 20 years, 30 years. Then you need to make the choice that's best for you. And there's no one that should be judging these choices. It's a choice you make with your spouse, or if your spouse cannot be involved in that choice, that you make for yourself. And no one should be judged for it.
I agree with you.
So, but I think it has to do with age. I think it has to do with like the timeline of what you're predicted for this to continue for, like the quality of life you have and don't have. And there's so many things that go into it. And this is something that's never talked about either.
Yeah.
Like hospice doesn't talk to you about it. The doctors don't talk to you about it. This is just one of those things. And as young people, it would have helped me probably to have somebody to ask these things to, because you don't want to just type it up and ask somebody. You don't really want to ask the doc, you just,
well, it's a faux pas. It's a faux pas. It's a societal faux pas for us to even contemplate the fact that we would put our vows aside for our own needs, or you know what I mean? Or even the fact that a spouse would want that for their spouse, but these are the things, just like we didn't talk about Alzheimer's and dementia back in the day, and we still have a hard time talking about it today. We sweep it under the rug because it's not pretty and it's ugly. But I'm so glad that you are starting the Young Caregiver Spouse Caregiver Alliance, because it really is going to give people a place. And who better than somebody who's been there?
Yeah, it's been such a learning experience, and I'm so like I've already gotten, since we've been doing this, I've already gotten like private messages from people like, oh, like nice ones, like what did I do? And I'm so happy I have, like, I'm going to respond to all of you tonight. And I just want no one to ever feel the way I felt. It breaks my heart that people are feeling like that right now.
I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and we all have a purpose in life. And, if I had said that I wanted to be a caregiver for 15 years, in fact, I remember thinking to myself, I ain't going to do this for 15 years. But, it wasn't until I tried to do something else and failed that I realized the value in what I have to give and my voice and what I can do. And look what I've done. So I don't ever give up on what you're doing. And it's okay to not know where you're at, but have an idea of where you want to go, because that's where all the good stuff lies in that journey. So I am so happy that you came out and talked about this. If you ever want to come out and talk about it again, we can do that. If anybody has anything they want to talk about, that's what these spots are designed for. These hangouts can hold up to 10 people. So if there's something that you guys want to talk about, there's a seat for 10 people here that we can create some awareness about. So these happen the first Sunday of every single month at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The link will be on YouTube. It will be in the support group itself. It will be on the fan page, the Caregivers Hub, and Victoria will throw it out there. It'll be out there all over. So if you are a young caregiver, caring for your spouse, caring for your mom, caring for somebody, anybody, Victoria has got your back. Young Spouse Caregiver Alliance support group on Facebook. Make sure you plug in. And is there anything else that you want to leave these lovelies with today?
Just if you want to reach out, I will get back to you. You can private message me. It's Victoria Dunstone on Facebook. My email's on there. I think my phone number's on there. You can send a text. You can go through the Young Spouse Caregiver Alliance and get a hold of me.
So I have a question. So would you be okay if, up in the top of our groups, it will say recommended groups. Can I add your group to recommend?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just want
Absolutely.
to ask. Well, then
Yeah, no,
you'll find it
absolutely.
there too in the Caregivers Hub.
Yeah, no, and I am available at this current time in my life. I have nothing else going on except for a dog that's crying in the hallway and that needs to be fed. But I have nothing to do. So if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. Contact me if you have questions. There's, in my mind, if somebody has a question about something, there's nothing off limits. I am willing to share my entire experience. I'm willing to give you hints and clues about diet, constipation, the medicines we use, the holistic stuff we did. We did everything from hyperbaric chambers to medical marijuana to oxy to everything. So anything that you have a question about, feel free to message me, ask me. If you just want to strangle somebody today, I can tell you
We
how
all
I do
do.
deep breathing exercises that really help me from not doing that.
Exactly. Hey, sometimes, some days, I don't care who you're caring for. Some
Yeah,
days, enough is enough.
some days are bad days, and it sucks. And it's
It
okay to be
does.
like, this sucks. It's okay.
Oh, big time, big time. Well, all right, Victoria, I'm
Yes.
so happy that we did this today. And thank you for coming out
Yes,
and
thank you
speaking
so much.
at any time. Absolutely. Like I said, you guys, this is the Caregivers Hub is your platform as a caregiver to share anything, whether you want to create awareness, you want to talk about advocacy, you want to talk about death with dignity, you want to talk about friends with benefits for caregivers. Whatever it is that you want to talk about, we can talk about. And I like that nothing's off limits
Yeah,
because
there's nothing off limits.
we censor enough. I think we
Yep.
censor enough. This is what I always say. Healthcare is black and white and we are the gray. We fall
Yep.
within the gray.
Yep.
And so I think that we got to talk about these things.
Yeah.
So
If you,
I'll
I mean, you have the questions, I have the questions. So just ask me and I can answer them as honestly and the way we did it. And hopefully that will help somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're already helping people. Anytime that you can be a lifeline to somebody, and you are, because people are calling you and they're messaging you and they're asking you. So you're
Yeah.
on the right track, sister.
Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome. All right, we're going to sign off. Tune in next month, first Sunday of the month, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Plug into the fan page, Facebook, Caregivers Hub 15. Plug into the support group, Caregivers Hub Support Group on Facebook. That is how you can find us. And the link to Victoria's support group will be in the Facebook group, the Caregivers Hub. So, all right. Peace out. Until next time,
Bye.
keep on
Thank
with your
you.
badass caregiving selves.
Bye.
Bye bye.